The institution must have oversight on the cost for the program, for operations and record keeping. So when I say that we are focusing on this, so we're doing things in phases. So we have a thing what's called the VCA, which is viability, capability, and accountability, what we're just going over. It's about a 10-page document, I believe, 7 to 10-page document that if you are new or you were SD last year, you are required to fill this out and have it approved by our office before we can approve your online application. It's going to end up where everybody is going to have to do this, but we're phasing it in. But I do want to let you know, like, say you do have to do it. If you, like, I'm going to use a school district, or if you're a big agency and you guys do a large internal audit, we can accept that because that actually gives us more information than VCA. So we understand the VCA is going to look a little bit different for if you're a for-profit daycare, if you're a nonprofit entity, if you're a school district. So there will, and then, so if you are to do this, Cassie has sent this out and will tell you when to bring it back. But if you did not receive anything from her, you do not have to do this at this time. We are getting ready to start working on, I'm hoping to start doing it in January or February, but we will start doing trainings, which has been, Cassie and I in general have talked about it for years, about we need more training on the budget side and the financial side of CACFP because we never talk about it. So we're going to be doing trainings regarding that. So speaking of Cassie, Cassandra, and myself, Kendra, not only did we have some changes in the field, but just so you're aware, because you're going to see some different names. So during COVID and a little bit before, we've had a massive change. I didn't think it was that big, but we kind of had a massive change in the office. So Jennifer Weber, who was director of operations, Debbie Hamilton retired. Maybe she retired in February. I'm getting confused when everybody retired. We had Debbie retired in February, and Jennifer Weber went from director of operations to executive director. And instead of filling the director of operations position, what they did was they split her job into two, and we now have a director of schools and a director of CACFP. Director of CACFP is Cassie, or Cassandra, she goes by Cassie, but her email address is Cassandra Riddell. And she is she's the director of CACFP. Dana, who was director of training, moved over to director of schools, and I'm now director of training. But also in the CACFP division, Edgar moved into Cassie's old position. So he's still here, but he's in a different role. And Karen Davis took Edgar's position. And then Rhonda Stevenson moved into the school side. And so Jennifer Pryor, who just started September 1st, is now, and Lisa King is still here. So we have a new group in CACFP, which is Jennifer Pryor, Lisa King, and Karen Davis. So you'll probably see all these names and be like, who are these people? And that is why we've had a lot of shifts going on. Like I said, we've had a lot of people retiring. We've had 3 people retire this year. A couple in the field and some in the office. It's been a lot of change. So we are going to go through the basic responsibilities for this training. So again, if you wanted to learn more, you can see the from P7 to 10, page 7 through 10 in the eligibility or in the CACFP training manual. But these are what we're going to be discussing today. So the family size and income application. Just a reminder, this must be completed by the family. The center cannot fill this out for them. The only thing that you can do is put the participant's name in the section, but you are not allowed to fill out any rest of the application besides putting as participant or enrolled in the center as the person that's enrolled. You must distribute this annually. So every year you do have to get new applications, and you do it every fiscal year. It's not the year that the participant started, it's per fiscal year. So every September, October, by October 30th, you do need to have a new application for everybody if they send them in to you. And also another reminder, it is not required for them to fill out the application. You cannot force them to. You can just say, hey, if you fill this out, it does help us keep our costs lower because it helps with food costs. but you cannot require them to complete it and send it back. We will be talking about the two types of approval. We're going to talk about categorical and family size and income. So what categorical is, it will have the full name of the enrolled adult. It will have the case number. It can have the case number, which is A, B, C, D, H, J, or T, plus 6 to 9 digits. It can have TANF or FITPER, and FITPER is food distribution program in Indian reservations. So it's not if they have a roll number, it is if they are receiving commodities from a tribe. But the most common that I've seen in an adult daycare is a Medicaid number or a Social Security number, their SSI. So all of those, if it is listed on the adult application, it qualifies the adult for free meals, or for free reimbursement, I should say. If it's an income application, they'll put the name of the enrolled adult, the name of all the household members. If that member does not have household income, you will check the no income box. Now, the names of the household members with income, they need to list their gross amount before taxes. For both of these applications, they both have to be signed by a member of the household. The only addition is if it is an income application, is they must list the last 4 of the Social Security number to be approved by income. If it is approved by Medicaid, SNAP, any of those other ways, Social Security, they don't have to put the last 4 of the social, they just have to sign the application. If on the application there's multiple household members that have income and they get paid in different increments, then you will use these income conversions to make them all annually. Now, if you have a family where they both get paid monthly, you can just add up the total of the monthly that they get paid, and then you can go onto the eligibility scale and look up how much it is monthly for that many people in the household, and you can qualify it by that way. But if you have one that gets paid weekly and say one that gets paid monthly, then you do have to make them both annual equivalent and then add it up. Once you take the weekly and multiply it by 52, and then you take the monthly and multiply it by 12, you'll take those two totals, and that's how you'll approve the application. So on the application, it is incomplete application and it cannot be approved. If it's incomplete, if you're missing information, if they didn't sign it, you can't approve it until it is signed. If they left it completely blank, they didn't put anything anywhere, it just still has the enrolled person's name on it and they signed it, that's not approved because there's no other information on there, either like SNAP or income. There's no other information. So you cannot complete it. It is what we would call denied, and that adult would go on the not eligible roster. Now, if they put information on that application and you can't read it or it's questionable, just contact the household, and then you can document the conversation on the application. You do have to return it if it's missing a signature. That's the only thing you can't do. And then you must resolve any inconsistencies. So an example is, say you get an application and it has a 16-digit number on that. Well, it may be a SNAP or TANF, but that's the number on their card. You need their actual case number that begins with the A, B, C, D, H, J, or T. So you can contact the household and say, I need the case number that begins with a letter, and then they can give it to you, and then you can write that case number on their application. But again, you must notate the conversation and initial that who you talk to. But all applications must be approved by face value. So now, I mean, if you have some questions like, hey, I think you may have left some income off or anything like that, you can definitely ask that, but they are to be approved. You don't have to ask for documentation proving what they make or if it's true and correct. So what if income information is missing? Request that the applicants write 0 or mark the no income box when there's no income. If it's a true, if it is a true situation where they literally have no income, they really should be marking the no income box, or they can write 0. what we have seen in the past is if they like put a big O X through it or put NA, that does not mean that they don't have income. It just means that they're not applicable or they're not wanting to give you that information. So for it to be a zero income application, they must put zero or put no income. Now, it is a free application. If they mark the no income box or put zero in there that no one has any income, it can be approved as an income application as long as the adult at the house signs the application and puts the last four of their social. If they don't give you the last four of their social, it is an incomplete application. So just a reminder, some things that we have seen is when you are approving the applications, on the back of the application, it's going to have a tiny little scale on there. That is actually part of the reduced scale, and it's just we are using USDA's prototype for their application. So do not approve an application using that information on the back of the application. Make sure you are using the income scale, and the income scale is on page 356. And I will say this year, if you have not, we have sent out manuals. If you have not gotten your manual out yet, I will say we did a really good job, I believe, this year, because it was missing. You would have to go to multiple parts of the training manual to find information. So they tried to add more information to the adult section, so you didn't have to go to institution originals and didn't have to go other places to find it. So also, I will quickly say about the income about the application. Is if you ever need an application in a different language, USDA, you can type in, I think we have a link to it on our website. If you hit like we have a website that links you to USDA. But if you do need an application in a different language, you can get that. Just go to USDA translations. I think there's like 65 different languages in case you need that for somebody at your center. That I think we have a Spanish version, but it's for the child care side, but they do have all languages. Like I said, I think 65, if you do need that in a different language for your parents to fill out or for your adults to fill out. So the application, just a big reminder, if we come out to do a review and at the very bottom of the back page is not filled out, it says, I'm trying to remember what it says on the application. I need to pull the application up, but do what? Determining official. That's what it says. But on the back of it, it used to say like, for official use only, and people would get confused who's the official use, and you are the official use, you, the center. But where it says determining official, that is where you sign and date it once you approve the application. The application is not approved until you do that. So if we come out to do a review and you have everybody, like all your adults on free, but you did not fill out that bottom section, they all were supposed to be claimed as not eligible because you did not approve that application. It's not an official application until you approve it. So the adult at the house has to sign it at the household, and then the center has to sign it. And if it's missing those, then it's not a complete application. It cannot be approved. So here is if you have any issue, if you're trying to determine any household size or determine household income or any income exclusion, these are the pages that you can go to see like who does and who doesn't have to be on the application, or what income does or does not have to be on the application. Go through this list if you have any questions. If you can't find the answer, then you reach out to your consultant, because it may be something that we have to do a little bit more digging on. But make sure it gives a lot of really good information about who does and who does not. Because sometimes, I mean, we even get them here in the office from parents that want to do the application correctly, or adults want to fill it out correctly. So they'll ask who does and who does not have to be on the application. There are also military exceptions, and so you can go to page 314 and 315 if anybody in the military would like to know what if they qualify, of any pay that they do not have to list on that application. But like I said, I mean, I had, I think, 2 adult centers, and most of the adults I saw, it's either they didn't give you an application or most of them were Medicaid or Social Security. So just so you are aware, you do have a little bit of flexibility for the effective date of approving the application, or not effective date of when the application is approved, I should say. So there's two ways. And honestly, I would suggest you do it the date the family or the participant signs the application. The other way you can, the date approval date is effective is the date the institution signs it. The reason why I would probably suggest the date the family signs it is because, say a family gives you an application on the 30th and it's signed of the, say, June 30th, and that participant started June 27th. So they ate a few meals in June. Well, you go on vacation and you come back July 5th, and that's when you approve the application. Well, if you approve the application on July 5th and you go by the date you sign it, then that means that they would be not, say it would be a free application, but they'd be not eligible in June and then free in July. But if the family signed it on June 30th and you go by the date the family signed it, then they would be, say, free June and July. So you can't flip-flop on it. You have to be consistent how you do it throughout. But again, just a suggestion, I'd probably suggest doing it by the date the family signs the application. So once you approve the applications based on free, reduced, or not eligible, they need to go on a roster. So everybody that is free will go on the free roster. Everybody that's reduced will go on the reduced. And then everybody that is not eligible will go on the not eligible roster. And this is also for anybody who did not turn one in. But all your participants need to be on a roster. Even if they don't participate in the program, they need to be on a roster. I would say put them on the not eligible roster. You won't claim them, but they need to show up somewhere on the roster, because when we come out to do a review, we take your attendance, because we'll see them on the attendance, but we won't see them on the roster. So we think that you missed somebody and didn't claim them. But what you do is, if you have somebody, say they have a lot of allergy issues, and so the family's like, no, we're going to bring the meals. You know, we don't worry about it. We'll bring the meals because it's just of all the allergy issues. It's not worth it for you guys to have to jump through hoops. So what you would do is I would say put them on not eligible, but then instead of marking them as being participating for that month, you put NP for not participating. So just make sure that everybody that's in your attendance record shows up on a roster, but if they participate, mark them as participating. But if they're not participating in your program at all, you don't need any documents from them. You don't need an application, you don't need anything. And then you would just put NP for not participating in the months that they did not participate in the program. And what you do at the end of every month is for that month, you total up how many free you had, how many reduced, and how many not eligibles. And then that's what you claim as your participation data. So record keeping, just again, all forms must be maintained daily by month at each site for any institution participating in CACFP. So all records must be kept on site at the location approved on the institution's application. I understand if you're multi-sited that you may have your records at one location once they're completed. So you may have them at your sites during the month while they're filling them out, but then they send them all to one place afterwards. And that's fine. You'll make sure you just put that in the application and agreement of where the records are kept. In the chat, if you guys could let me know if you guys have, how many meals do you serve per day that you claim with us? You just do breakfast, lunch, and snack, or do you do breakfast, lunch, snack, and supper? Because I can get an idea how many does what, I'll know what to maybe skip and what not to skip. But how many meals do you claim through us? So if you do 3 meals or do you do 4 meals, how many do you claim? How many are you set up in our system to claim for? But you do have to also have attendance records. So make sure you have attendance for every person at your site. So a lot of times it's just if they're there and they participated in a meal, they mark that they were there. And arrival and departure times may be required depending on if you serve more than 3 meals per day. Also, it could be required if your consultant comes out and does your review and say, no, you need to keep time in, time out sheets. Okay, so right now we only have 3. Okay. So that helps. So you can, in our system, claim, you can have, say, 4 or 5 meals in our system, but per person, you can only claim 3 meals per day. And I figured with adults, all of you guys are doing really a maximum of 3 meals per day. And I ask that because if you do more than 3 meals per day, since they can only be claimed, each person only be claimed for 3 meals per day, you have to do extra, kind of a little bit of extra work. So I just want to see where I need to go with that. So when you mark their attendance, and then we have to have attendance records, and then we have to have a meal count worksheet, where this is where you put how many breakfasts that you served, how many lunches that you served, how many snacks that you served, and that's what you claim with us. We again do have this interactive in the worksheet section of the resource library. So it helps so you don't get off on your counts. And the other thing that we have is the daily record of meals. We call it the DROMS form, and it's on page 46 and 47. And I'm gonna actually try to show you that. The DROMS form is intended for those that do serve many meals per day. However, I had some centers that only have a maximum of 3 meals per day that they serve, and they really liked this form because it showed who ate what meal and who didn't. So let me see if I can get this working, because I've had some issues with this. Oops. So it may be a form that you are interested in using. The form that we have, yeah, there we go. Get this focused. Yay, I could not get this to work yesterday. Is it doing it? No? Is that better? There we go. Okay. Yay. So this is what the DROMS form looks like. Again, you put the participant's name over in this column, and then you mark what meals that they have. We've also created this to where it just shows the 3 meals per day, and it's in the worksheets. And it is nice, again, it says like what meals like this person was, since you don't have more than 4 meals per day, don't worry about the circles. That doesn't apply to any of you. But if you use the interactive form we have, what you can do is you can do it by paper, and then you can go back in. It's not really wanting to focus, but you can go back in and use the interactive worksheet that we have. And once you put in the X's, it will make all the totals for you. So this counts as both your attendance records and your meal count worksheet. So it's a 2-for-1 sheet. So it's just an option that you can use if you want to. But I just wanted to show you. And again, we do have it in case you do not have, that is really not very blurry. But it is an option form in case you would like to use that. And we refer to the DROMS form. It's called the daily record of meals. And again, if you use just this one form, you do not have to, you don't have to keep a separate meal count worksheet or attendance records, because that is all in one. All right. So next is the food purchasing form. So once you're purchasing items, you must, like if you purchase your items from say, like Walmart, Sam's, you must use the food purchasing form because it itemizes the receipt. You do have to have the original receipt intact. Does anybody here, I'm trying to think, I feel like a lot of daycares contract their food out, or they buy from a vendor like Cisco, Benny Keith, Sam's. Does anybody here buy most of their food from say Walmart or Sam's, or do you all use like a vendor or food service contract? But if you do buy anything from Walmart and all that stuff, make sure you do the food purchasing form. Now, whenever you put your items on there, if it says something that doesn't make a lot of sense, like for instance, I had one that put HP 65, like 1, 2, 3. And she put that on there. I'm like, but what is this? I don't know what it is. And she's like, we had to call Walmart, and she said it was ink. So you can put the number on there and then in like parentheses put ink, so we know what it is, because that's also another reason for it is it's not detailed enough for us. We don't know what it is. Now, if you do use a vendor, or you do not have to use the form. The reason why is because it is very detailed. It tells us exactly what you purchased and the amounts. But we do ask that on, like, say, a Cisco, Beinecke, Tankersley sheet, that you do section out what was food and milk, what the total was, what was the total of non-related food supplies, and put that as a total, because you do have to list it in your columns on your expenditure worksheet. And just a reminder, if you serve any items that do not count towards a reimbursable meal, it can't be put on your expenditure worksheet. You can't charge anything off to our program that does not meet, like, if it's not for CACFP purposes, it cannot be put on the expenditure worksheet as a CACFP expense. So this is a new change for this year. If you are receiving any donated products, any food, milk, or anything else donated, it can no longer be used part of the reimbursable meal. All donated items can be an extra. We were having a lot of people getting a lot of donated items, and the point of this program, it's a reimbursement for food, and they were not spending enough money on our program, so it just started becoming a problem. So we are no longer allowing donated food or milk items, but you can serve it as an extra. It just cannot be part of your reimbursable meal. So at the end of every month, you would put on your summary report on your expenditure worksheet all of your allowable CACFP expenditures and reimbursements, including any labor that you're going to charge off. So one thing that I had an issue with in the field is senders cannot charge off more than it's approved in the online application budget or more than the employee is being paid. So what we mean by charging off is so we talk about financial viability, meaning that you have to be, like, your business can run, you do not need our funds to keep your doors open. Like, you are financially viable. We're just here to help you with more nutritious meals. On the other side of it, we talk about being a nonprofit. So what being nonprofit means is, it means, say, if we give you $1,000 a month, you have to spend all that money plus some on our program. You can't make a profit off of the money that we give you. So say we give you $1,000 a month, and that month you spent $600 in food. Well, you need to tell us what else did you spend on CACFP for us to help go towards that $1,000 we gave you. And a lot of people charge off labor. So it's only the amount of time that they used with our program. So a lot of time your cook that's all they do is cook and clean. And so that goes to our program, so that the entire cook's salary can be charged off to child nutrition. We don't pay, what we give you in reimbursement is the amount that you get. We don't pay you extra for labor. It's just that how much are you spending on our program, and you could include labor in that. It has to be is what we're giving you or more. And I think a lot of our adults are actually spending more on even just food than they are on the reimbursement that you get from us. But if you do charge off labor, we do have to see pay stubs. And I did have a situation where the center was charging off the cook, which they could. They were charging $1,000 a month because they said their salary. And I asked to see the pay stubs, and when I got the pay stub, that person was literally making like $1,000 to $2,000 a year. Most of it was volunteer work. So if they are not making $1,000 a month, you cannot charge off $1,000 a month. It has to be what you actually pay them. But on the expenditure worksheet, it also has to have the food purchases, the non-food purchases, and any miscellaneous expenses for our program. And that could be like ink or anything like that. But if you use ink and stuff, you have to prorate it. And I'll kind of talk about that right now. Like, so all the expenses that are allowed, charged off to CACFP, must be in the budget section of the online application and approved by our office. again, this person was trying to charge off $1,000 a month in labor, but the person wasn't making that much money, and it wasn't even approved in our, so in a, or they didn't even list the cook in our budget. They just didn't list any labor at all. So if you don't list any labor, you're not approved for labor, so you can't charge that off to the program. Items that are used for the entire center, like paper towels, they must be prorated. So if you're buying, say, paper towels for the whole center, you can't say that the whole entire expense of the paper towels is to be for child nutrition. So maybe a third of it is child nutrition and the rest is for the center. Then you can either charge off paper towels once every 3 months if you buy it monthly, or you can just take the cost and divide it by a third and then charge that off to CACFP. But again, only items or services solely used for CACFP purchases can be charged off to the program. Which the 2 adults that I had, I did not have these issues in, but again, this is something that we have seen across the state in general with the CACFP program. This is an example of some unallowable expenses. This is some stuff that we have seen, like you can't charge off coffee, tea, or creamer. That is not part of a reimbursable meal, so you can't charge that off. You can't do holiday decorations or classroom activities. That's not part of the CACFP system. It's anything that you purchase that goes towards the CACFP. So any food for a reimbursable meal, again, foil, spices, anything like that. If you're using paper plates, anything like that can be charged off. But these are some things that are not allowable. So cookies, a lot of the sweets no longer are creditable on our program. So if you buy those and you serve them, you cannot charge the expense off to CACFP because it's not something that goes towards a reimbursable meal. So I did put these slides in. We talk about this more in multi-sided as well. I left them in this slide, but if you are multi-sided, we do have a couple of new things this year. If you are multi-sided and you want to add another center or another site, you do have to have the following documentation to our agency, which I don't really see it as much here in adults, but you do have to have a new site add form. We have a whole section now just for multi-sided in the resource library, and these documents can be found there. We do have to have a license for the new facility. If a license is not required, but for adults, you would need, I think, a license. If you were having a site at some place that wasn't affiliated with you, you would have to have a unaffiliated site agreement form. You would also have to check the NDL list, which if you don't, you have to be set up for that. If not, we have instructions on page 271. But if you do open a new site, you have to ensure that that site or anybody over that site are not on the national disqualified list. If they are, they cannot, that site can't participate with that information. You have to have either somebody else or pick a different location. And none of you guys do at risk. So if you add an at-risk site, that's mostly who adds sites or are at-risk sites. But if you are multi-sided, these are that you are required to monitor. So you must monitor each site around 3 times per year. There are 2 methods. There's one that's the most common. I don't really know of anybody doing the review averaging, but the most common is to do 1 announced and 2 unannounced. And we have some that do all 3 unannounced. Then we have review averaging. But if you are multi-sided, you must review each site 3 times per year. And then if you are going to add a new facility, then you must be monitored before you can begin CACFP operations. So just a reminder that you have up to 60 days to submit a claim. If you submit a claim after the 60 days, we cannot pay that. So make sure you get your claim in within 60 days. Any payment notices should be kept on file. So once you get paid, you can go back out to the claim, the summary, go down to the bottom and say print payment notice, and you just print that out, keep it with your records. And then we also have a monthly record keeping checklist. So if you're not for sure what all records you need to keep on file, we do have a checklist that can help you out with that. Something else that is new for this year, it's actually something we were doing, and then it just kind of dropped off with a lot of changes that we had in previous years. But if you need to revise your claim, the form is not out there yet because it's in effect for when you do your October claim. But you will go to the resource library and fill out the CACFB claim revision form. This form, you'll put your new numbers in. It's a justification of why you're revising your claim. And it's okay that you revise your claim. It's just we have to have documentation on why you are. It could be that you transpose numbers or you got your snack and your lunch mixed up. I mean, things happen. We understand that. But now you can't just call up here and be like, I need to revise my claim. You have to fill out this form and you can fax or email it to us before we'll be able to let you revise your claim. So just an FYI, this is some administrative errors that can cause an overclaim. This is not an all-inclusive list, but this is just some stuff that we have seen. So if we show up and there's no records, we can take back money we'll take back money for that. If you have any family size and income application errors, or if you did not get new application errors for that, or any new applications for that year, if you have any roster errors, if you're claiming any more, it says kids, but any more adults that are in attendance. If your meal counts are not properly maintained or there's incorrect numbers, or if records or documentation does not support the claim, we can take back money for those types of situations. These are just some things that are common that we have seen. Another thing is if you have food items indicated as being served on the menu as served form, but receipts do not support or show enough food items were purchased and inventory was not being maintained. For example, is milk, which is a little bit different for you guys because you guys can do offer versus serve. But, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's just like you may say that you, which has happened, they'd be like, I served 50 pounds of hamburger this month, and I look at your receipts and you didn't buy any hamburger, or maybe you bought 5 pounds of hamburger and you don't have any inventory. I can take back those meals because it doesn't match up with your receipts. But we understand you can buy things in a different month, but we cannot use receipts from other months, and that's why if you have inventory, we can look at your inventory. If you're claiming program adult meals, so you can claim your adult meals, those that are participants, but any adults that work for you, you cannot claim their meals. You can only claim the meals of those that are your participants, that you get applications and stuff on. You cannot claim adults that work for your center. You can't share receipts with another center. If you're multi-sided, we understand that you may buy for one and then you divvy it out, but this means like adult center A and adult center B have friends that work at each other's centers and they're giving each other receipts. And then if you're for profit, if you're claiming meals and you don't meet the requirements to claim, meaning you're under the 25% free and reduced or Title 20 requirement. Oh, it's Title, thank you. Title 19. I need to correct some of this stuff. Title 19, I need to remember. Okay, I'll change it from Title 20 to 19. Thank you. So now let's go through some other requirements. So you must have an individual plan of care for your participants. An individual care of plan is a written evaluation of a functionally impaired individual's health and social needs. So we do have a copy of a blank one on page 323. I mean, I'm sorry, 355, but we have an example one on 323. So you don't have to use the one that we have, but I've seen some different ones, but you do have to have an individual plan of care for each participant. And again, it can be activities that will be completed or achieved, or provisions for periodic review and renewal, any recommendations from therapy, anything like that. I've also seen like things that they can't have to eat and that kind of information. And then Adult Day should also have a daily schedule of group activities aimed at providing both physical and mental stimulation. So those are something that we will look at when we come out to review. We don't go into detail, I mean, but we do have to look at them and make sure that you have one for each individual, their plan of care, and then you have a group program, which I'll be honest, I love going into adult daycares. They're my absolute favorite thing to go into. I love the participants. I love what you guys are doing with them. Adult daycares are my happy place. So again, when we were talking about receipts, it is optional, but you can keep inventory. Did we have anybody that was purchasing from a vendor or is most of the adults, the two adults I had, they were contracting food. Is it anybody not is everybody contracting food, or are you guys buying your own food? Okay. So I just wanted to make sure, because I didn't want to cover anything if it didn't apply to you. So if you are getting your food from somebody else, you really don't need to worry about the food purchasing form or the inventory. The only thing that I'll caution you about is if you are using a food vendor is it's an adult, and it's also the daycare. What they would do for them is they would give them all their milk like on a Monday, but not the rest of the week. They would keep it in the fridge at the centers during the week. So when we look at it on the contract form, delivery receipt, it would say say 10 gallons of milk. And then there was no other milk for the rest of the week because they were using that for the week. So my thing is just make sure if they give you all 7 gallons on one time, or 10 gallons, whatever it is, or give it to you all at one time, but you're using that for the week or using that for multiple days, make sure on either the contract delivery receipt or somewhere that you're listing how much milk you did give them. And I'll talk more about the contract delivery receipt, but I just want to caution you with that because it looks like they never gave you milk for the rest of the week, and it can be a problem if they didn't do that, when essentially they gave you all the milk up front and you're using it for the whole week. So we'll talk about that. But on the inventory, so if you do have food that you buy from, like, say, Cisco, you can use inventory. So again, we can't look at receipts from previous months, but you can use inventory. Now, on the end of the month milk inventory, so what happens is, say you buy milk every Tuesday of the month, and that Tuesday happens to be February 28th. And we come out and review March records, and you bought, like, say, 20 gallons of milk. And when we come out to look at March records, you're short milk 10 gallons, but you did technically have enough. If you did not have if you have a milk inventory, you would put however much you had left that you were using for March. But if you don't have an inventory, we're not really allowed to use those receipts. So we won't be able to allow using those, whatever you had left over, into the previous month. But if you have an inventory, we can use inventory. We would ask just to see your inventory sheet. And the end of the month inventory is just a 1-pager. We did have a request. I haven't done it yet. I'll probably do it today. We do not have an inventory sheet that is interactive, but I'll put one out in the resource library under the interactive forms. But I will say, if you have your inventory, we can validate some of that with receipts. But we don't, but we can. We just have to kind of put that in there. But again, we do have to see for the month of review, your receipts must be available for review purposes for the month of review. Just a reminder of your training. Every center must have a CACFP trainer, and it's designated at each institution. So the trainer must conduct annual trainings, and you document the dates, the agenda, the topics, and get a signature of all attendees. Again, keep a sign-in sheet, and you complete the trainings by September of 30th every year. So you have between October 1st and September 30th of every year to complete your trainings. The training topics are CACFP meal patterns, reimbursement systems, accurate meal counts, claim submissions, claim review process, record keeping, and civil rights. So you don't have to go into great detail, but you do have to, these are the topics that you do have to cover. Civil rights, which I'll talk about more. Civil rights, we have have every year a live training that we did for 1 hour. It was October 1st, which we did send an email out again. So if you didn't get that email back in September, then again, make sure you're checking your contact information or your spam folder. But if you have not done civil rights, we do have it available online, and I'll talk about that more, to where you can do that at any time. So there are 2 types of methods. There's a conference or meeting style, or there's one-on-one. Now, you can do online or self-paced, but if you did that, then you do have to have a post-test and a pre-test. So most of you do not want to go through the trouble of all of that. So the most common is in conference a meeting style with multiple people or one-on-one. You can do it either way. You don't have to spend all day on these topics. You can literally spend 5 to 20 minutes if you want to on each one, depending on the person or depending on the group. So all those topics have to be covered. Make sure you have an agenda and discuss the topics of what you talk about. But they all do have to be covered, but you choose the length of time and you choose your method of how you'd like to teach that. So I talked about the training calendar. Again, I can't harp enough about it. Again, we are not sending out certificates for this class because you are to go to the training calendar now. They started using the training calendar last year, and then we really are using it this year. We're using it for everything this year. They used it for just our big trainings last year, but we're using it for everything. We are constantly coming up with new trainings. I have a ton of CACFP trainings out there. We are doing more module training. Again, log into the system where the application agreement is, look at the left-hand side in that mustard color over by the resource library, and it says training calendar, and it lists all of our trainings. Make sure you're checking the correct one, because I will say I've had a lot of at-risk people and some adults going to the wrong trainings. So make sure you select the correct one that you want to go to and register there. When you register there, what we're doing is at the end of the class, even before, we make sure that you meet the requirements. Like if you just log in and jump back out, you won't get credit for that. And once you register, what we do is give us at least a week, and then we look to see if you attended and all that stuff, and then we pull it over and it'll start showing up in your application and agreement. So that shows like we validated that you were here and that you met the requirements. And then we also have Team Nutrition if you're wanting other trainings. Team Nutrition has a webinar every third Thursday of the month. And if you have any training ideas that you would like us to do, please put it in the chat, because we're always again, we're planning on a financial budget one, and we're doing a food one. So it's for everybody. So if you guys get a lot of new cooks or have cooks that want to go to that, it's geared for everybody. We're not doing it just for CACFP, because a lot of things that we do is geared for daycare centers, because we have 600 of those, but we only have like 10 adult days. It is for everybody. We will go over adult meal patterns as well and other requirements for them. So it is for everybody. And right now we're doing that monthly up until December. If we get a good response, we'll keep doing it the rest of the year. Which I kind of think that one for sure we'll do monthly. I think some other ones we may do more sporadic. So with civil rights training, again, all of your staff must be trained. If any of your staff help with CACFP, so if they're helping serve meals, they need to have civil rights training as well. So you can do it a couple of ways. If you go to the resource library and go under the training and workshops, we have directions on how to go to our Oklahoma Edge or our Next Thought training module. You'll go to this link, but again, you'll go to the resource library, scroll to training and workshops, and it will say instructions on how for civil rights training, OK Edge. Now, what you do is you log in as one person, and once they complete the training, it will spit out a certificate for that one person. So those won't show up in our system, but those on that manual, on the modules for OK Edge, will spit you out a certificate. Now you can have a group of people watching it all at the same time. And if you do, it will print out a certificate for the one person, but just have a sign-in sheet for everybody else. Or you can have everybody, it's self-paced, so you can have everybody log in and do their own if you want them to. Again, anything on our OK Edge is self-paced. So even if it's a 3-hour training, it's self-paced, they can go in and out of it. But the civil rights one is about, when we did it live, it was about 45 minutes to an hour. So once you go through it, it will spit you out a certificate. If others are watching it with you, just have a sign-in sheet for those who participated. So civil rights, any materials. So if you send your menus out to any of your parents or to any of your adults, make sure if it's leaving the institution, it needs to have the non-discrimination statement on it. If you post your menu online, it needs to have the non-discrimination statement on it. Those are a requirement if it leaves. If you just post them at your center, you do not have to put the non-discrimination statement on it. It's suggested, but not required. You do have to have an Injustice for All poster. It needs to be in a visible location. It can't be like behind the kitchen door that no one sees because it's propped open, or because the door's already shut, it's behind the door. It needs to be in a more visible location. You do need to have procedures for filing any civil rights complaints. You do have that. It is in the training manual, and it is in the resource library. So if anybody has a civil rights complaint, they can fill out that form and send it to USDA. Again, you have to have civil rights training. And then these are the 6 things that FNS recognizes as civil rights complaints. So if someone has a complaint on civil rights, it has to be either for race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. So when we did send out the training manual, you should have gotten a page 7374 with that, which is, it was the cover of civil rights and then a non-discrimination statement. There was a typo in the non-discrimination statement, which we found right after we printed. So make sure you take that 7374 page out and insert it with the new one. If you didn't see it or didn't get it, it is updated in this resource library online, so you can print out 7374 if you want and insert that in. This is the non-discrimination statement. We have it into 2 sections because it's big. We wanted you to at least be able to see it. So this non-discrimination statement does need to be someplace on the menu or someplace online if they are posted. Now, you do need to have the large one if possible. You can shrink it down to where it's teeny tiny, but you should have the large one. If it does not, if it's too big and it just, no matter if you make it size 3-point, it's still not fitting, you can use the statement at the very bottom, the very last sentence. It says, this institution is an equal opportunity provider. You can use that last statement only. But it does have to be in the same font size or the largest font size. So if you have a document and it's 12-point font, it has to be the same size or larger. It can't be in smaller font. But that is an option as well. So something new for this year, when you did, if you're doing your online application, last year we required everybody send us their civil rights training documentation before we could complete your application. That is not the case this year. This year we are not asking you to send it. We're not going to upload it. But what you will do is you will mark a box. It's called a civil rights attestation box. It states that the sender or sponsor has completed the civil rights training. So if you have not completed it, I would complete it before you click that box, because when we do come out, we are going to ask to see those records that you did. In fact, we're going to validate that you completed the training. So if you did one for last year, if you did it before September, you did the FY20, set September 1st, the FY21 has been out there. This has to be done annually. Civil rights is something that does have to be done every single year. It's not a one and done thing. And again, this is the Injustice for All poster that needs to be posted in a visible location. So that should look familiar to you. So now we're going to talk a little bit about procurement and purchasing. I do have plans of doing a big procurement, like a 2-hour procurement for all programs in child nutrition in the end of January. So if you are, I'm going to just go over the highlights for today. If you feel like you need more information, we go through the whole process, or if you're a very large entity and spend more money, one, you can contact me directly and I can help you with the process, or you can listen to that training. I'm going to do that training twice a year, and it will cover everything for schools and for daycares, but it's geared, it's mostly geared for our schools, because our CACFP doesn't usually spend as much money as our schools do. So we're going to go over this kind of quickly. If you have any questions about procurement, I'm going to talk about what it is and just briefly discuss this. Procurement is also a big thing with USDA. It's so big that the schools now have 2 separate reviews. They have their regular review, their AR, like you guys have, and then they have a separate procurement review to make sure that they're spending their federal dollars correctly, because our funds are federal dollars. Everybody who gets federal dollars including us, we have to follow the same set of rules that you guys follow. My mom works for the Department of Transportation. They have to follow the same rules because they get federal funds. So this is kind of across the board. I mean, we have a little bit of different things because we deal with food, but they have talked about having a separate procurement review for centers. And we're like, are you kidding us? Like, you guys are so much smaller than a school, but I'm just letting you know, this is very important to USDA. So what procurement is full and open competition. So for those of you that are using a food service, you really do have to be reaching out to more than one person to see if they will service you with food. You can't just be like, oh, I heard about this guy, I'm just going to send it to them. You have to send it to multiple people. It can't just be one, because that is not full and open competition. So you all must have a procurement plan. It's where you have a written procedures for procurement transactions. If you do not have a written procurement plan, we do have one in the manual, and you can see the page numbers right here, or we have one in the resource library. We now have a procurement section in the resource library. So we have a procurement plan in there for centers, and it's, I think, 4 pages long. It may be 3, but it's short. But schools are like 14 pages long. But those procurement plans I would suggest you use because it does meet all of USDA requirements. If you're a small center and using informal procurement, which we'll talk about in a moment, you can use the one online. I think we're going to put the large one out there as well. But if you spend more than $250,000 a year with one person, then you need to get the big 14 pager, and we can send that to you. But we suggest using it because, again, it does meet USDA requirements. You may not be using all the methods in there, but in case you do, you never know when you may or may not use them. That's why we say leave it in there, because you never know if you have to use it or not. So the procurement plan must include methods of procurement, which is in the procurement plan, code of conduct, which is also in the procurement plan, the minority firms, women's business enterprises, and labor surplus statement. Again, those are all in the procurement plan. That is stuff that must be included. You also have to have a chart of procedures and protest procedures. Those are separate documents. I believe they're separated. The chart of procedures may be included when you print it out, but if it's not, it is in there separately in the resource library. But you do have to have a procurement plan, chart of procedures, and protest procedures. And then if you have any contracts over $25,000, you do have to have what we call a non-kickback affidavit that they have to sign, whoever you're using. So we're going to talk about the methods of procurement, and we're mostly going to focus on the informal methods. So if you're using micro purchasing, small purchase, or any non-competitive, that is all included in the small center one. If you use formal, that is something much larger, and you need a different procurement plan because that's not covered in the small version one that we have online. So what micro purchasing is, what people really get hung up on is all they see is the dollar amount. Yes, there is a dollar amount, and if you go over that dollar amount, you have to do a different method, but it's really how are you procuring? And I'm going to go over micro purchasing and small purchase and more in particular to clarify what those are. So what micro purchasing is and I kind of doubt many of our adults are really doing micro purchasing, to be honest with you. I think a lot of you are doing small purchase. So what micro purchasing is you are buying your stuff from multiple vendors. You're not getting price quotes, but everything that you are purchasing is a reasonable price. So a lot of our daycare centers are using this because they are buying their stuff at Sam's, they're buying their stuff at Walmart, they're buying stuff at Crest, they're buying stuff at Brahms or from Highland. They're buying from multiple vendors. They're buying from Staples. They're buying everything that they use for CACFP from a lot of different sources that they're all qualified for. That's what micro purchasing is. It means that you're spreading the wealth. You're not buying from one source, you're buying from multiple sources. I got the question the other day, does multiple sources mean 2? Well, when we talk about small purchase and we talk about other entities, USDA does state it can be a minimum of 2. But to me, when we say multiple sources, that's more than a couple. A couple is 2. Multiple to me is at least 3 different sources. And it could be for the same, for similar or dissimilar purchases. So an example is you may buy your food and milk from, say, Walmart and Crest or Walmart and Reese's, but then you're buying your paper goods that you use for our program, you're buying that from Staples. So you're buying things from multiple sources, but you're not checking prices. That is what micro purchasing is. And it's also used a lot, like our schools will use it, but they use it in emergency situations. So for instance, like say you are using a food service person and say they shorted you milk and they didn't have any more milk to bring you for that day. So you run to the store to go buy milk. That's kind of an emergency type purchase. So that can be a micro purchasing because you are having to buy from somebody else, but it's because of more of an emergency type situation. So what small purchase is, a small purchase is if you're spending under $250,000 with one person. So if you're spending less than $250,000 with Walmart, if you're with your food contract that you currently have is under $250,000. But what small purchase is if you're buying from like one person, you need to, you then have to check prices. So say you are buying from Cisco, but when you're buying from Cisco, you have to send them documentation saying that you want your food, you need a food bid from them. But you also need to be reaching out to some other sources. So you can reach out to US Foods, Tankersley, Mid-America, Benny Keith. You can use one person, but you have to either check prices or get prices from at least a minimum of 2 sources. Or say you buy all of your stuff from just Walmart. You just buy from Walmart, that's it, because it's easier for you guys to do. Well, if you're only buying from one source, you need to check prices. You don't have to use the lowest price, but you do have to state why you're going with them. So if say you're going with Walmart only, and the reason why is because they have grocery pickup. Well, that's great they have grocery pickup, but you need to say like, hey, I checked prices with Crest. Maybe Crest is cheaper overall. Their prices are overall cheaper, but you're choosing Walmart because you can do grocery pickup and it saves time and labor, which could cost more in the long, it could cost more in the long run using Crest because of the time to go shop and the labor. So again, you do have to have at least check 2 sources. If you're using it for food service, you have to send it to multiple people. Even if they don't respond back to you, that's okay. They don't have to respond back. But you do have to send it to 2 people. So an example is one of my adult days is close to a school or close to, say, a hospital or anybody like that. You can check, say, with someone that you've heard of using food service for adults. You can send one to them, but you need to send it to somebody else. Send it to a school and ask them if they'll send you meals. Send it to a hospital, like their cafeteria, and see if they'll contract with meals. But you can't just send it to one person. You have to have free and open competition. The only thing is if you have an emergency circumstance, you can do what's non-competitive, or if there's inadequate competition, or you can only find that from one source. So maybe let's say you want to use a computer program and it's only from one source of everything that it will do. You can't find it anywhere else. You may be able to do non-competitive where you do award it to that agency, but you first have to have approval from our agency. So again, if you're saying like there's only one person you can send this to, you have to get approval from our agency first. You can go ahead and send it to me and we'll discuss like who would take care of that. It's probably our director of, it's probably Jennifer that she was the one that would take care of that. But you can send it to me. That's fine. If someone wants to put my email address in the email box, they can, or even just send it to that CACFP saying, hey, this is a procurement question. We can only find this one vendor to do this one thing. Because you will have to get approval, but for us, if we come out and they're like, no, I just sent it to this one person, you have to get approval from us first. So I'm going to briefly just skim over formal procurement. So it's if you spend over $250,000 with that one person or vendor. What you do have to do is you have to send some specifications out to 2 vendors at least, kind of like with small purchase, you have to do the same thing, send it out to at least 2 people. But with formal, you do have to put an advertisement in the paper, and you have to have a whole opening. You have to have in the paper when you're going to open it, when it has to be due back to you, including sending it out to vendors. There's 2 types. There's invitation for bid, or what we call a sealed bid. So if you have the bid opening is at 5 p.m. October 17th, so October 17th at 5 o'clock, when you have to allow people to come in or have them be able to see you open the bid at the bid opening. Then you open it up, and if you do it by sealed bid, it's when they open it up and whoever has the lowest price, because they said that when they sent you that price quote, they said they would meet your specifications. They would meet exactly what you want. But if that's the case, then the person with the lowest price wins it. Request for proposal is based, price is the primary factor, but you can use other factors to do it. So like, for instance, if you are using like a food service, or if you are using, say like Cisco, Benny Keith and all them, you can have in there like, yes, price is the main factor, but it's because they will deliver to me on Tuesdays, or they'll deliver to me twice a week, or anything like that. So it's about price, but it's also about other factors. Now, if you get a little confused for procurement, we all do. This, it's a flow chart to see if you're doing your procurement correctly. It is in the resource library. It is also located in the training manual. Something else that I kind of wanted to go over just briefly, I didn't go over it in this training, I need to add it to the slides, is just an FYI. If you are selected for review this year, or if you were selected for review last year, you were made aware of this. So we get audited by USDA, and we also get audited by state auditors. Now, the state auditors this year have required for every single review that our consultants went out on, they required that they get all the documentation, copies of all the documentation they looked at for the month of review and the day of review. And I mean, I didn't take a picture of it, but we had mounds and mounds. We still have mounds and mounds and mounds of paper. As far as we know, this is not going away anytime soon. The state auditor is going to require it every year, which is, we don't want to do it. We don't think it's right that they're asking us to do it, but we don't have a choice because they're auditing us and we have to do what they need us to do. But just so you're aware, if we come out to do a review, we will we'll be asking for copies of every single thing that we look at, including the day of review. And we get the question every training is, who's responsible for the cost? You are responsible for the cost. You can charge it off to CACFP, but it's part of being on our program, and it's a requirement, not we're requiring, but it's the state auditors are requiring it. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Don't be surprised if we ask for that information. So something else is specifications. If you are using a vendor, what specifications are is essentially your grocery list. Specifications you send out to, like this, like if you're buying from Sam's, Walmart, all that stuff, you're doing the price checking yourself. But what specifications is especially, it's specifying to these vendors what you want them to give you a price on. Like you want chicken nuggets with a CN label. You want pineapple tidbits in light juice, like, or in natural juices. You are telling them what you want. So that's what specifications are. So you do have to write them. We say don't freak out. Just like start doing it slowly. Like if you want 80-20 hamburger beef in a 10-pound roll or a 5-pound roll, that's what you're specifying to them that you want them to put a price on. You need to be specific, because if you're sending, say, prices to Benny Keith, Cisco, Tankersley, and you just say you want ground beef, they could give you, one could give you a price for 90-10 ground beef in a 1-pound roll, one could give you 80-20 in a 10-pound roll, and one could give you a price for 80-20 in a 5-pound roll. So you have to be specific. If you want, say, chicken nuggets, if you want bread, you want it to be whole grain, you need to be specific. So again, if you're using a vendor, make sure you're specific, and you are the ones who dictate what you want to purchase from them. They're not to dictate to you what you need to purchase. And then something else is farm to child care or buying local. So you can have gardens, you can have some food related education activities or any culinary activities. I'm sure you guys don't want to visit any farms. But again, you can buy from farmers markets, farm stands. You can have your own garden. If you have your own garden, because I had a daycare that had their own garden. If you have a garden, make sure that you put that information, like what you're harvesting, on an inventory sheet, because you're not going to have receipts. So if you say that you harvested, say on 10/5, 5 pounds of zucchini. And then so when we see that you serve zucchini, we'll know on your inventory that that's where it came from, is from your garden. And then we'll take a break, but I want to really quickly go over if you contract. So if you're contracting for a service, this is for services. The institution retains the final administrative and financial responsibility. So if we come in and say someone's helping you for any service and whatever is happening is not working right and we have to take back money, it is the responsibility of the center. That our contract is with the center, not with whoever you contracted with. So you cannot contract for management responsibilities. So you cannot contract for monitoring, you cannot contract for submitting claims, corrective action, or preparation of application materials. If you contract for services, this is not for food, this is for services, you must have, you write the contract, the center writes the contract, you must send it to our office to be approved before you can go out on bid. I don't really know of anybody contracting for services, but I just wanted you to be aware of the rules and regulations for that. So this is what's the most common, is contracting for food service. So if you are getting your food from somebody as a whole, like it's coming prepared, you do have to have an agreement between the center and the food service provider. It is required. We do have to have a new contract every year. Now we have 2 different contracts. So I would suggest you call our office or email the CACFP to attain the correct agreement that you need. Because we have one that's really for schools or for tech centers, and we have one that's geared for everybody else. So again, just email that CACFP and be like, hey, I have contracted in the past with, and they can give you the correct the contract that you need. I don't think we have anybody here contracting with a school district, but so I'm not going to talk about the first part, but the rest of this slide is what is required. So from your vendor, they document the meals that they deliver to you, and they document those meals on a contract meal delivery receipt. Even if you do contract with a school district, they are to give you what's called a contract meal delivery receipt. And I'll pull one of those out so you can see what it says. So they give you the contract meal delivery receipt. That is your menu as served form. So you have to maintain those. If you are missing like a week's worth, we will take back meals for that because we're not showing that you serve meals for that week. So make sure that you have a copy of all those contract meal delivery receipts that they gave you. It must be signed by the center and by the person who is delivering it to you. And I'm going to show you a copy of this right now. So what happens is they give you the contract meal delivery receipt, and then that vendor will bill you for meals. So, and when they bill you for meals, they are billing you for the meals that they are giving you. So you may have a center you're contracted for 25, so they give you 25 meals every day. However, I'm going to go back, sorry. When you claim, you can only claim the meals that was consumed by an adult. So say they gave you 25 meals, however, you had 18 participants that day. You cannot claim 25 meals. You have to claim the 18 because that's how many ate that day. So I'm just explaining to you, you cannot claim just because they give you 25 meals and they bill you for 25 meals. You can only claim the amount of food that participants gave to you. So let me just show you really quickly this contract meal delivery receipt. So you are aware what it looks like. It should be up right now. So this is an example. This example is on 221. But again, this is what it looks like. They would put the menu. This is actually a blank one. This is not well, actually it is filled out. They just didn't put the menu on here. Like they can put the menu in here if they want, but they have to tell you, like this is for kids. We have one for adults. If not, I need to make sure that we have one for adults. We should have one. I need to double check that. But anyway, they need to tell you what they're bringing, what they delivered, the amount. So they would put the crediting information. So if they gave you 10 gallons of milk, they may, and they would have to tell you the temperature at delivery for all of these. They have to tell you what the temperature is. And again, and they tell you, like, so instance for milk, who's responsible for milk? Is the vendor responsible for milk, or is the site? Because sometimes it's the site. You're not buying your milk from a vendor. So like right here, they gave 1 gallon of milk. So they did it per day. Again, I've seen it where they give a milk for the week. So they would put the vendor and tell us the milk for the week. And I told them, like, every day, like how much they actually use to put it in here, the center, and then do it for every week, and even make a note like, this is for the week. This milk delivered today is for the entire week. So we could go back to that week. And again, like right here, they're telling you green beans, pineapple, biscuit, and any extras that they give you. But again, at the very bottom of this, they are stating, I acknowledge that the above items and quantities were delivered in this contract to this contract site. The food was delivered in a safe method, yes or no. Were the food temperatures proper, yes or no? And then any comments that they want to put here, and the signature from the site receiving the food goes here. And then up here is the signature from the person in the kitchen. And again, I acknowledge that the above items and quantities were delivered to this contract site. I did complete the necessary portioning, crediting information. CN labels or product information statements or recipes are available for all combination food items. When we come out for a review and say they serve chicken nuggets, they may put they really should put the CN label number on there, but we have to see the CN number. We have to see the CN label. If they use a recipe, we have to see the recipes. I was at an adult day, and when I got a copy of all the recipes they had, they were short on a lot of quantities. They were not serving enough food. So what I would suggest when you're writing your contract, or I think in the contract, I need to see what it says in the contract, but you can add a statement in there that you want copies of all recipes and all CN labels that will be used for the program. So the contract that we have is the minimum requirements, but you can add anything else to that. But I would, like I said, I would highly suggest that you put on there, because we will need to see them for the review. Because we have to make sure, because we pay you based on what we give you for food. So if you're not serving enough, we'll have to take back meals. But there is statements in the contract that do state if they don't give you enough food, like that you don't have to pay them or something like that. I ran into a situation with one of the food vendors that they didn't want to give us CN labels, and I went out 3 different times and requested. I stopped the review 3 different times and requested labels, and they refused to give them to us. I finally had to take back all the meals, and we took it back from the daycare center, and then finally that food service company was contacting us saying, like, it's not a requirement. We're like, yes, it's a requirement, and you chose not to give them to us, and we tried 3 different times to get them, and they refused. So I would definitely tell them that you want a copy of those labels. You deserve it because you are paying them for the food, and they told you that they would meet requirements. I don't think anybody is contracting with the school district, but just if you were, they are required to charge you a certain price. And if you are with the school district, that contract is from July 1 to June 30th. It's because it goes by their fiscal year, not your fiscal year. If you get it from any other food service vendor, we don't care when the contract is from, when to when. But for a school, it does have to be in June to July. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to go over just some meal. I'm going to go over some just specific meal pattern requirements just for adults. Again, I'm not going to go over the food buying guide really or any of that kind of stuff in depth. So we're going to take a 10-minute break. It's 10:40. We'll come back around 10:50. So stretch, do all that, and we're on the last stretch. Again, we're just going to go over some of the highlights for the adults, because as an administration, you need to be a little bit of aware of some of this stuff. But if you do use a food service person, like a contract person, you may tell them about our trainings. You can sign them up for our trainings. They're not going to get credit if, you can sign them up through your system if you want to. That's fine. You'll get the credit for it. But if they want to sign up, the Zoom link is in the training calendar, and you can just send it to them and say, you need to go to this. You need to go to this. We want you to go so you know the requirements for adults. So you can tell them that, or you can sign them up, and then we'll send you the email with the link as well. But if you want credit for our training, then you have to sign up through our system. So again, make sure you have until 8 p.m. tonight if you did not register in the CACFP training calendar You sign up for that or you won't get credit because we're not sending out certificates, but it will show up in your application agreement. So we'll see you 10:50. Really good Cliff Notes version of the food buying guide. If you go to bologna, it says, does it count? Maybe. And it says credible when free of byproducts, cereals, or extenders, or when the product is CN labeled. Examples of binders, extenders, or starch, cellulose, and non-fat dry milk. Examples of dry byproducts are glands, hearts, and other organ meats. And then it will tell you to see this page of the food buying guide. So it gives you information on where to go look. If you have anything also that you're wanting to serve and you are questionable about it, and it can even be like sugar content, and you're just not sure, all of the consultants, their information on page 4 of the training manual, where it lists all of our consultants, their email addresses, their phone numbers, they're all work cell phones. I had centers all the time text me like, hey, does this work? Hey, does this work? So we like to see what the product is. So take a picture of the front and of the nutrition facts label, and then we can help you out if you have any questions, because there are some things that we have to even look for more ourselves. So we do have our original documents. We have our institution originals. We have our multi-sided, and we have our adult day. And our adult day, again, we added to it, so that way you don't have to always go to the institution originals and the adult day. We just think that was too much work. So again, just a reminder, we are not sending out certificates. So, and if you have any questions, please let us know. We're going to be here in the chat for just a moment. Again, we are not sending out certificates any longer because we already validate if you attended this training and that you attended the entire time. So if you make sure, again, you go into the CACP application system, click on training calendar. This training will still be in there until 8 p.m. today. Make sure you register everybody who listened to it. And then when you do that, when we get the information from Zoom back, Sherry in our office validates it, and then it will go to your application agreement that you attended this training. Because the certificate that we had been sending out in the past was just blank anyway. So that is what we are now doing. I appreciate you guys attending this. Again, I hope to be doing this again another time in the year. If there's a better time in the year to do this, next year, because of everything going on, we had a lot of other trainings in September. That's why you guys were pushed to October. But next year, I hope to do this one in September. It will probably be via Zoom if that's easier, just because our adult days are everywhere. But if there is another time of year that would be good, when it's maybe a little bit quieter for you guys to do this exact training again, put it in the chat and we can do that. But again, thank you guys for coming. Again, please make sure you register if you're wanting credit in our system that you attended this training. And if you still need instructions on how to do that, go to the training and workshop section of the resource library and there are instructions. So I appreciate your time. You guys have a wonderful day, have a wonderful weekend, and good luck this year. And I'll put some music on, but again, we'll be here for just a little bit if you need anything.